Welcome everyone to the BS Show, the gaming news podcast where we ditch the sugarcoating and give it to you straight. I'm Blake.
And I'm Steve.
And if you're looking for real talk without the BS, you've come to the right place. Before we jump in, don't forget to stay connected with us. Follow us on X at NoBSPodcastGG for all the latest updates and hot takes. Check out our YouTube channel at NoBSPodcastGG and be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're also on TikTok at NoBSPodcastGG throughout the week, so make sure to stop on by and say what's up. Love what you're hearing? Show your support by liking this episode, dropping a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to keep up with all our future content. This week we focus on the patch notes, retail PvP and its lack of interest, the decline of Mythic Dungeon runs, the rise of popularity in Hardcore Classic, and the biggest W's of WoW this year. Alright, let's cut to the BS and get into today's episode. Welcome everyone to the No BS podcast, or the BS show, sorry. I hope everyone has had a great week. We got Thanksgiving coming up this week, so to hop into everything, Steve, how has your week been, and what games have you been playing recently?
It's been good. I've been playing a lot of hardcore WoW, and I'm sure we'll get into it a lot more later in the show. So I don't want to say too much, but it's been a blast so far.
Are you still playing any of that Pokemon Pocket TCG?
A little bit, not as much. I haven't had a whole lot of meetings, so I haven't gotten a chance to really play it as much. It kind of tends to be one of those things that I play when I'm sitting there doing something else. Like, it's a perfect game I'm sitting on a call, I'm sitting on a meeting, or I'm waiting for something. I'll just pop it open up some packs and kind of go from there. But otherwise, it's not one of those things like I'm sitting in bed on a Pokemon TCG. Like I'd rather. TikTok kind of has like a grasp on me if I have my phone and I'm doing something, or I'm trying to figure out something to do with my phone and I'm TikTok, like laying in bed. I'm on TikTok for sure. But I've been trying to read more. I'm trying to push to read a book a month. So
what book are you reading right now?
I'm reading Sword of Kagan. Okay. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's really good so far.
Yeah, I can't read past the second grade level, so no, it's funny you said about Pokemon the Pocket. Like, so I have notifications set up on it to just send me whenever I can open up packs. But like, I know I got a few buddies at work who play, but they actually like do the battles and shit, and I don't even do that. I'm just trying to collect as many cards as I can because they have that whole option to trade. And I think that's about last week I got that God pack. Now I have gotten like quite a few. I don't know if you've looked at my binder at all, but I think you'd get a little jealous after seeing some of the cards I pulled. I pulled like a 3-star Pikachu, like a 2-star Nidorina or something like that, and just a ton of really, really rare cards. But other than that, I've been playing a lot of League as I was watching Arcane. And that Supervive, and for anyone who has never played Supervive or who hasn't heard of it, it's an open beta. It's a MOBA BR/hero shooter. Now it reminds me a lot of Brawl Stars in that like the camera angle is like up and above your character, and like when you're moving your character, so you move with like your WASD, you use your mouse to like aim where you're going. It's hard to explain. I thought it was okay. Definitely not a game I can see myself playing a lot of. I think what you said, Steve, I had like 40 minutes played on it.
Yeah.
So I think I've played like a total of like 2 or 3 full rounds. And it wasn't that it was like necessarily like confusing or I just didn't like it. It just felt kind of like an old arcade game, and how the cameras and like the shooting was. Now, maybe like you were saying, I need to give it a few more hours, see if it grows on me. But for the time being, I'm honest to say, like, I wouldn't recommend playing it unless that's the kind of game, like you're into those kind of games. It just, like I said, the movement and everything, that just felt really weird. I mean, I did like the, you have 4 abilities and you can like combo them together and stuff like that. And I think there's like 2 or 3 like super overpowered heroes in the game. And if you're not playing those, you're kind of already at like a disadvantage. But
okay,
but it's not bad. Like I said, you have to play it. Like I said, it's the camera angle. It's up above. You're using your mouse. You got like a cursor on the screen, and it's not like it's. You have like you ever play like the 8-ball pool where you have like when you go to shoot the ball, it like gives you the long white line to show where you're aiming at.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that with your mouse. So you have like this long white line coming off your weapon or your whatever it is you're wielding, and it shows like
Okay.
the distance that you could use it at. So like you're running around, WASD, and you're like mouse 1ing the whole time they're shooting, or mouse 2 for an ability, or Q or shift or R, and it just felt really freaking weird. Like I said, maybe it's just I just need to play it more, but it's just as of now it wasn't my thing. So to hop into our first segment here, we got the patch notes. There are some classes that are seeing some good buffs, some that I don't really understand why they buff. So you got the Blood Decay got a pretty good buff. Frost Decay got buffed too. So what they actually buffed with Frost Decay was their single target. So they're increasing the damage like Frost Strike and Obliterate by 12%. And like I said, I was kind of surprised about that because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Frost Decays were already performing like extremely well, right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where they were recently. I know they got some nerfs a little bit ago, and yeah, they were like the number one DPS melee DPS class in the game for a long time, and in PvP and PvE. So it is kind of surprising to see them kind of get a buff. I haven't played retail in quite some time, so it's definitely news to me for sure.
Well, I remember I put out that video on TikTok about the top DPS. I mean, you can go to any tier list, whether it's on like Icy Veins or Wowhead, and Frost Decay is usually up there at like the S tier. I know like a lot of it was like their AoE, because like, what is it, like Pillar of Frost and all Remorseless Winter on like such like a short cooldown. It was like 30 seconds and like a minute. But yeah, I was surprised to see that. So Feral Druid actually got some buffs too with Rip and Rake. Their 2 big bleeds got a damage increase to 10%, and some other classes that got buffed were Frost and Fire Mages, and then Windwalker Monk got huge damage buffs, like huge buffs. And then finally, some love has been shown to H-Priest, who they've got some really good, all their Serenity healing got buffed by like 25%, and I know that they have been lacking quite a bit and underperforming. So how do you feel about those buffs?
It is good to see the classes that are underrepresented, like Windwalker Monk, get some much needed love for sure. I think, realistically speaking, like they've always been kind of one of those classes that just either doesn't get brought in raids very often. Mythic Dungeons even less. Like there's so much less space to bring in a random class like that. And PvP, it's same thing. Like they're very underrepresented. So it's nice to see when classes like that get some love. Holy Priest, I'm not 100% sure how they've been performing this season.
Oh, they've been asked, dude. They've been asked. I mean, Disc has always overshadowed them. Like they've always been the go-to spec for healing priests.
Yeah, so it's definitely nice to see. I think classes like that need to get kind of brought back into the limelight and get shown some love and get more and more people interested in playing those classes. I know I'm not like a Windwalker main or anything like that, but I know if I was a Windwalker main and my class was just complete shit, like that would make me kind of not want to play the game. Like I love DK. Like DK is the class I've always played. That's always been my main since for the longest time. And if DK is in a really, really bad place, like it kind of makes me not want to play the game at all.
Yeah, well, like the thing with Windwalkers, I've played a little bit of it, is it's not necessarily that their damage is ass. It's just that they're squishy, right? I mean, and you got what, Touch of Karma, Fortifying Brew, which is on like a fucking 3.5 minute cooldown or 3 minute cooldown, and Diffuse Magic, and like that's your only defensives. If you're another, and you bring no utility besides paralysis and maybe like a leg sweep for a stun or something like that. But, you got classes like Rogues that have tons of defensives. You got, Demon Hunters that you got Netherwalk. You have Darkness. Yeah, there's a lot. You got your, so much things that you can bring for the raid group or your mythic group. And Windwalker is just kind of like in a weird spot. It's like, well, I got this damage. It's like, okay, yeah, but again, you're squishy as shit. You don't really, when you start pushing keys, you pick up those big packs. You need to be able to pop an evasion like a rogue, like every 2 minutes. You need to be able to do that more consistently. And with how long of their damage cooldowns are, or I'm sorry, their defensive cooldowns are, it's just like, why would you play one instead of something else? So I think instead of buffing their damage, give them more utility or more defensives, and then they'd probably have a higher representation.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a similarity to with like hunters. I know for the longest time, hunters have basically just been just like almost just like a cannon, basically just shooting. That's all they were good for, just damage. But I think now you're kind of at the point in the game where every class has a spec that can pull off some pretty good damage. So if you're not bringing in some utility to a raid group or a dungeon run, it's harder and harder to kind of justify bringing those classes. And that's kind of why they wanted to add that hunter's mark buff to hunters. And I know sometimes people will bring hunters for lust and all that stuff, but it's a lot harder to build a raid group with and not have a class that already has lust pre-built. I think
given it's like everybody.
Yeah, you have mages, you have evokers, you have shamans that have lust, and now you can even buy drums from the auction house. So it's one of those weird things. It's like now everyone has it basically. So before it was a lot harder to, like, sometimes you would end up in a group where it's like, okay, we don't have lust. Let's make sure we get someone in here that can have lust. Okay, hunters have it. Let's bring a hunter in.
I don't know. I've always had a stigma. I've always had I don't want to say hatred for hunters, but like every time I've done dungeons, it's like they've always like pulled shit that they weren't supposed to, or just because I know they finally introduced where they get into dungeons where their pets they turned off auto taunt because of how many times the hunter's pets were pulling things. I'm sure you've seen that in the hundreds of thousands of dungeons that you've ran where the hunter accidentally pulls shit because their pet goes off and does something, or
you just like accidentally multi-shot or rapid fire or something, and now you end up with like a way bigger pull. And even like I remember like doing like a bunch of RBGs back in the day, and it was always kind of one of those things. It's like, do we bring a hunter? Okay, we have a base, and the hunter's role was solely to just sit on a base. Like they were brought into an RBG group for like nothing else than to sit on a base. So it's like you're kind of thinking, it's like, if you want to play a hunter and you like doing BGs and you're trying to get into RBGs, it's like, okay, yeah, all I'm going to do is sit on a base. I had no idea this is what I was going to do.
Well, the whole purpose of it was just so your pet could attack somebody. So if you had, if you have classes like rogues, or feral druids trying to cap on you, you can, especially like a rogue, if he saps you, you can have your pet attack him, and it takes any kind of damage, drops that capture. So as like I said, that's the only reason why they're brought. Speaking of PvP, there are a few buffs, actually really two that are good and one that doesn't make any sense. So Demon Hunter is getting they're getting a lot of damage increase. They've been probably arguably one of the worst melee DPS so far this season. Right after probably I'd say they were worse than Unholy DK. Unholy DKs were doing really good, and then Blizzard just kind of shit on them. And Demon Hunter was right down there with them. Now they're finally, getting back up there. Arcane Mage, they got a damage buff all across the board, I think it was like 15%. And then Ellie Shaman, and I do not know why Ellie Shamans got buffed again, because you don't do much PvP, right? So in solo, in a lot of arenas, Ellie Shamans were almost fucking like one-shotting people with this Stormkeeper build, and they buffed their damage even more. It's stupid. There's absolutely no. And Ellie Shaman, they're one of those classes that you really don't cast shit. Besides like Stormkeeper, you're really not casting anything as an Ellie Shaman. So there's no, they buffed Lava Burst damage, all that stuff had no place to be buffed. Do you think? I was gonna say, do you think these buffs they really come as a surprise? I know you don't. Have you played any PvP at all this season, or
not really? No.
Okay,
PvP has not interested me this season whatsoever.
Well, the more I've played it, the more I'm realizing it hasn't been as enjoyable for me as it used to be. It's just dude, there's so many damn abilities. Everything is a cleave. And it's it's just, I don't know, man. So to hop into the nerfs, Enhanced Shaman was the only class to really get nerfed in PvE. So all Maelstrom damage across the board was decreased by 8%, which again is in my opinion, not really needed. I mean, I know that they were doing pretty good, damage wise, but I think Enhanced Shamans have always been one of those classes. It was just you said, why bring an Enhanced Shaman when you have all these other classes. Like they were really brought for like the lust, but now they got that oh my god, what is there's that buff that I think it's like Wind Fury buff that they bring, but now it's given to like all shaman specs. So it's like, why bring an enhanced shaman when you can bring an Ellie or a resto, and just to kind of shit on their damage was just kind of fucking stupid. In PvP, Blood Decay was nerfed by 35%. Now I don't know on the World of PvP subreddit. There's a bunch of screenshots of Blood Decays and arenas hitting 1 to 2 million death strikes.
Really?
Yeah.
I definitely think it's justified to nerf tanks. I think tanks have one of those weird spots in PvP that if they're good in like in an arena setting, it's completely the worst thing in the world, because it's so unfun to queue into an arena when you queue into like a tank group.
Do you remember prop pallies? Dude, their Avenging Shield would silence you, and then it's like they have like 2 different kind of bubbles that they'd use, and they were healing as much as a healer and doing a shit ton of damage too. Yeah,
it's just terrible. It's terrible for the game, and it's good that they do this. And I know for the longest time, like I played a lot more RBGs than I played Arena, and even in that setting, it's like they had to kind of nerf tanks, where it's like if a tank was the one that was holding the flag, they would take just so much more damage compared to like a DPS, that you would have to kind of start thinking and strategizing, okay, does it make more sense for us to have a DPS? And that's when you kind of started seeing like rogues being flag carriers, or like feral druids being flag carriers, resto druids being flag carriers, Mistweaver monks being flag carriers, because you just didn't want to risk the possibility of like a guardian druid or whoever was your tank holding the flag just get completely annihilated, which was happening quite a bit.
Well, dude, you got Blood Decays. I would say actually all tanks in general, besides maybe Brewmaster monks, are healing more than fucking healers. And BGs, it's actually kind of stupid as shit. It's very unenjoyable. Like, good luck trying to capture a node with a Blood Decay sitting on it. It takes like 3 or 4 of you to even get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then the mythic affixes for next week are going to be Voidbound. You're going to see Tyrannical at your +4s, and then Fortified is going to be at your 10 and higher. So to hop into our next one here, so the state of WoW PvP. You haven't, again, I know you say you haven't played a lot of it, especially this season. I have. It's been like the main thing I think I've played, and like I've stated numerous times, the state of WoW PvP is just, it's ass. The biggest gripe that I have seen is that MMR and CR, like they haven't inflated the rating enough. So like I know for a few weeks there at like 15 to 1600 in 3s, I was facing multi-glads and like rank 1s. And I was like, what the fuck is this? You're playing at, a pretty low bracket in PvP. It's like, why are these people going against it? But then it's like you have BG Blitz where people, if you look at the highest ratings right now, everybody is like is getting their rating at BG Blitz. I think like the highest rated person is like 3,500 in BG Blitz. Like it's that easy to get. Wow. Yeah, it's that fucking easy to get rating. It's like with BG Blitz, it's just a matter of you just have to continuously play, right? It's not, because you're gonna have games. People say you can carry, but it's very hard to carry as one person with a group of 7 others if they don't know what they're doing. The only way I could see that you can carry again is if you're like maybe like a rogue or a feral druid, or a stealthy class, or you can able to get like a ninja cap or something like that, or maybe if you're like a Mistweaver monk, or like a Prez Evoker on a flag carrying map, and you're just able to be such a nuisance with that flag that you could, cap faster or just make it harder for them to get to you. That's the only time I really think that you can carry. Now, there was a post put on Reddit called, or titled, why retail PvP doesn't interest players. And there's a few things on here that actually makes a lot of sense. So one of the big things is, Rated Arena has the lowest participation ever, and LFG is pretty dead, and I can attest to that. I mean, I think I faced the same couple teams at like 18 to 2K MMR multiple times, and you know, it used to be you would play different people every single time, so it's like it just kind of makes the community feel even smaller. And then it's like if you go in LFG, and this is like this is actually probably like the biggest gripe is people sit in LFG for hours, either looking for a healer or looking for a DPS, and I think LFG actually ruined PvP. Because you get a bunch of elitists in there, and it's always like, oh, you know, 2-time multi-glad, you know, wants healer with 2,500 plus experience, but it's like you look at their achievements, and they got glad like 8 years ago, but they're like still holding on onto those achievements. It's fucking stupid. And then as well, here you go first.
Oh no, yeah, and I was gonna say, to be fair, like LFG has been a thing for a while, even with like back before it was a thing built into WoW. You had add-ons like OQ that kind of let you look for groups and build your groups from there. But I do kind of agree in a sense. It does kind of make the game feel not as social when you have things like looking for group, because it's like we had kind of talked about in the past. It's WoW is a very social game, and you have to go out and be able to like meet friends, make friends with people, and kind of build a bond, build a group. I can't tell you the last time. I mean, I guess the last time I played, I did like an LFG group to PvP was back in Dragonflight, and I remember like back then, it's like, or back in the day, it's every time you join like a threes group, it was almost like common courtesy. It's like, okay, let's get in a Skype group, let's talk, and you make some pretty good friends just kind of randomly jumping into a Skype call with people and talking to people and getting to know people, and you kind of start figuring out, it's like, okay, I want to play with this person a little bit more. Let's let me add you on BTag and then go from there. And you're kind of using those outlets less and less.
Yeah, well, like I joined an LFG group, I think it was like 2 days ago, and I said I heal so I can hop into pretty much any group I want. And I hop in there, and you know, I'm from the same era as you. You get to know those people. You want to hop into Discord or Skype or whatever. I go, hey, what's going on, guys? You know, how's your guys' day going? And just fucking silence. It's like this, the whole solo aspect of the shit that they put in there. Like for an MMO, the PvPers are so antisocial, bro. It's fucking stupid. So
yeah, and it's funny because I think it used to be the complete opposite, where PvP was more of the like social group where it's like everyone was cool with each other, everyone was friends.
Because you had teams. You had, if you remember, you had to make teams.
I remember like I used to get crap for like telling people it's like, oh, I can't do RBGs tonight because I have to raid tonight, and I would just get shit on. It's like by all my friends because like it's like PvE was like the nerdy thing to do in WoW, and PvP was always like the cool thing. That's like what the cool kids do, and now it's like the complete opposite, which is crazy. It's like everyone is doing Mythic Dungeons. Like people will talk shit about your IO rating and for mythics if it's low, and now it's like PvP. It's like people care less. It's like, oh, whatever. You're rank 1. It's like, who cares?
Well, what I wish they would do with PvP, similar to how they do with mythic rating, is you don't lose rating, because you don't when you do Mythic Dungeons, you don't lose any of your IO score for, you know, breaking a key or whatever. I mean, arenas are arguably already very freaking hard. It's like, and the other big thing about it is, I'm sure, like, if you're a new player, like, trying to hop into an arena and figure all that stuff out, because it's like, you got to know not only your class, but you got to know every other single class and how, you know, what to do with all their, you know, against their abilities and shit like that. It's very confusing.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the downfalls with the current state of PvP is I just think there's too much going on. Not just in abilities and CCs and all that other stuff, like on top of like knowing your rotation and knowing how to do damage and knowing what abilities do what your opponent's abilities do. Everyone's like, if you just look at like a good PvP player on stream or something, you're gonna see like 10 different weak auras and like all these different add-ons kind of just cluttering their screen. And a new player is gonna come into this and have no idea what's going on. Yeah. It's just so much going on, and I think this is why I like to kind of go back and say that like MOP was the best state for PvP.
Oh, 100%, dude, 100%.
Because it was so much more simple. like when you look back at the talent tree in MOP, it's like you had maybe 6 or 7 talents that affected the way you played.
That's right, because that's right. It only had like the 6 or 7 rows, and you chose like one of the 3 that were available, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of modifiers that you could do. It's like you chose 1 or 2 things, or one thing from each row, and that was it. And that it changed the way your class played depending on what you chose. Like sometimes it was just like a choosing between a different stun. Like you didn't have a whole bunch of different options for CC. It's like you had one row that was just CC, and it's like you chose which CC you wanted. Do I want a stun? Do I want a fear? Do I want an incap? Okay, this is what I want. And I think that was great for PvP. And kind of like how you said, adding like a different way to play PvP, I think would be cool if maybe they incorporated something like the MOP talent tree just for PvP. I think that'd be awesome. I know it'd be difficult to do. I'm not 100% sure how hard it would be, but when you like look at what people are saying, like people that go from playing like PvP in other games like Guild Wars 2, like Guild Wars 2 is touted as like one of the best like PvP MMOs. Like I feel like more people play Guild Wars 2 PvP currently than they play WoW PvP. And it's crazy to say because I think WoW has the best like PvP
100%
for an MMO like ever made. Like in terms of like what I've enjoyed, like there's a couple that have been really fun. Like
I think a lot of it's tonight the UI though too. With WoW.
Yeah. And granted, it's something that we're comfortable with, but like if you kind of, I'd be curious to see what the numbers look like. But I can almost attest to it. Like going into like a Guild Wars 2 like PvP, you have to kind of like transfer over to a different zone for PvP, and it's almost like a lobby. And you can kind of walk around and you see all the people that are doing this one thing, that are just doing PvP. Like there's so many more people compared to like how many groups you see in LFG and how many people you queue into. Like if you queue into a game, kind of like you were saying, you queue into the same group almost like the whole night sometimes.
Yeah, and like I remember you had told me to give Guild Wars 2 PvP a shot, and I wish I would have given it more of a time to play, because what I think they did, or what they do extremely well with Guild Wars 2 is there's no gear. You know, you pick out your talents or your load, you know, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but you know, their talent builds and stuff like that, and then you're right into it. With WoW, so you're a new player, you're trying to figure this out, dude. You gotta know how to min-max. You gotta go onto Murloc.io or Icy Veins and look at, you know, what your top stat priorities are. Then you gotta look at all the gems that everybody's using, and you gotta craft your gear a specific way. It's like I don't even know. It's very intimidating for a new person, because it's like, again, for like somebody like me or you, we've played this game for fucking, you know, 15, 16 plus years. It's not that hard for us to know how it all works. But, you know, we're not bringing any new players into it, and it's just so fucking confusing. So I wanted to kind of end this one on this note. So you haven't played PvP in a while. What could WoW do to bring you back? What do you think would bring you back and other people back into retail PvP?
That's kind of like a loaded question.
No, what do you mean? You're going to say nothing?
No, I think they have to figure out a way to make the game enjoyable again, and kind of like how you were saying.
But how do you do that? About rewards?
No. I don't think it has anything to do with rewards. The game loop is just very frustrating, and especially when you're a new player or a returning player. That, like, if you try to start PvP, like if you try to jump into arena halfway through the season or towards the end of the season, you're just gonna get shit on for like the first 2-3 days or whatever until you get gear. And even then, it's like it's still very frustrating. Like the whole run up until you have full gear, or you're somewhat caught up with gear, is just so frustrating. Like you can't do anything, and you feel like you're doing like something good, and then you look at the end and you see how much damage you did, and you're like, this is crazy. Or you just go into a game and you just get destroyed within the first 2 seconds because everyone just outgears you by so much. And I know, dude, some people kind of...
It's not even that too, though, but I think that they should get rid of the fucking tier sets, because some of those classes, like I'm going to just say Enhanced Shaman real quick. I think it was season 4 Dragonflight, Enhanced Shamans were completely fucking garbage until they got like their 2 set. And that has no place in fucking PvP.
Yeah, and I kind of understand why they wanted to incorporate stuff like that, and I know I think it was BFA or Legion where they kind of tried to push PvPers to do PvE and PvEers to do PvP, just to kind of basically saying like they wanted people to play all of the content, and that makes sense. Like I understand like Blizzard worked very hard to give you this game, and they want you to do everything within the game to enjoy it and continue playing the game and not necessarily get bored of the game. Like once you're done PvPing, like they want you to be able to go into PvE and have fun with PvE and vice versa. But again, like it's a completely different game. It's when you try to compare PvE to PvP, it's almost like two separate games. Like you're playing a completely different game with either one, and it's just so hard to say what they need to do. Like I think for one, they need to figure out a way to remove this whole concept of gearing. I think that's one of the it's I understand it's an MMO and you have to grind for gear, you have to do all this other stuff, that's fine, whatever, but I think in a sense like with PvP where you want to have kind of like equal footing, equal ground, like some sort of equal playing field, having something as big as like 20-30 item level gap for a person that's like just jumping in, it's crazy. It's huge. And like say like you try to jump into arena today and you haven't played in years, or not years, but like in months, you haven't played it all this season. Like you would jump in there right now and you would just die instantly, or you would just do absolutely nothing. Just because it's like you have nothing. And yeah, they added the gear that you can buy, and that's cool. Like that's fine. That gives you a little bit of a heads up. But after that, it's like it's so frustrating because like once you get to like 1700, 1800 rating, whatever, it's you kind of start getting to the point where everyone's fully geared and almost everyone at that rating kind of has a general idea on how to play the class and do their abilities. That difference in the item levels is going to be huge.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, you can't even be in full greens and fucking play at that rate.
Yeah, yeah. I tried a couple arenas back in Dragonflight, and it was like I got up to like 1800 rating and like in threes, and then but I was in all greens. And granted, yeah, I bought a couple pieces of gear throughout my process, but it's like once you get to that kind of point, it's so hard and it's so frustrating to like sit there and play, and it's like, okay, this is like I'm just
gain rating pretty fast though to get to that rating pretty fast. So it's like, yeah, because you gain, it's like I think it's like 100 150 CR every win, and it's like if you go on like a 10 to 12 win streak, you know, you've only gotten maybe 800 conquest to get one piece of gear, but now you're facing, like you said, fully geared players at that fucking rating.
It's kind of dumb. And then at the same time, like we've talked about this at links in the past, the whole micro CC thing is just, it's very frustrating. Like, and I know people have said this in the past, like you want to be able to play the game, and sometimes there's like I haven't PvP'd in a long time, but I remember like queuing into like RMP or something like that. You would have games where you just wouldn't even be able to move. Like you would go from poly, like a whole poly chain, to now it's okay, the rogue is CCing you. Okay, now the priest is going to fear you. Okay, now you're off poly DR. Okay, I'm going to poly you again. And it's like, okay, am I ever going to get to play a game? And then someone from your team dies, and you're getting yelled at for not doing anything. You're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Like you trinket one thing just to get sit a full fucking blind.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the frustrating things. I wish they would do something with that. Maybe add like a different kind of, very similar to kind of, I don't know how much Guild Wars you played, but having that something that you have to do, like so there's like capture the. It's like capture the flag. I know it's like an RBG or whatever, but like almost like a little mini RBG, like 5v5, 3v3, something like that. Maybe even bring 5v5 back.
Yes, yeah.
I think that would be pretty cool. But outside of that, I'm not 100% sure like what they really could do. Like one thing that a lot of companies are doing now is bringing back like OG modes. So maybe if they brought back like OG PvP into retail, I think that would probably bring a lot of players back. And I know we're gonna kind of touch on this later on with the whole hardcore resurgence. Like you have big PvPers that would rather play a hardcore WoW than PvP, which is insane.
See, I'm gonna end it on this real quick. I think that they need to reduce the amount of DRs because right now I think there's like 7. You got roots, incapacitates, disorients, stuns, silence, knockbacks, and disarms. I think if you reduced it down to like 3 or 4, then it would be a lot better. Like they went in the right path of making fear and cyclone DR each other, but now, if they would make like poly into a stun instead of, a disorient or, whatever, I think that would be like huge because like I said, you got fucking 7. And if you got 3 classes that are all on separate, that all bring separate DR'd CCs, you can't do those huge CC chains where you can't play your class.
Or reduce the amount of CCs that each character has.
Like not spammable, especially now, dude.
Yeah, like how is it that a mage can spam poly but a shaman has hex on a cooldown?
That's like a fucking 3-second cast, too.
Yeah, that like stuff like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like that's crazy. Like if poly was on a cooldown, I think it would, and granted, I know like a lot of mages don't even CC anymore because it's like
you don't even have to.
They just do so much damage now that it's like there's no point in CCing. But it's like just little things like that probably would make the game a lot more enjoyable. And I know
you have to choose between doing the CC or the damage. Yeah.
And I'm sure the competitive players would probably dislike if the game was made easier in a sense. But I think the best
top
players
1% ruins it, dude.
The best players would still win almost every game. Like that's the one thing with WoW PvP. It's almost, I would say like 99.9% of the time the better players are going to win.
Yeah.
And it's like that 0.01% is going to be like, okay, you just had a counter to that one comp.
No, not in my matches. They get lucky when I lose. They got lucky that they won.
Yeah, or they got lucky, yeah.
So before we get into our next topic, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG and on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG. Also be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All right, man, for our next one, this is something that you're very familiar in. There was a little thing put out about the decline of Mythic Dungeons. So according to this chart, which got its statistics from Raider.io, there were a little over 2.4 million Mythic Dungeons ran during week 1 of the War Within, and now we are at 1.3 million. So that 1.3 is actually still up from Dragonflight Season 4. So Dragonflight Season 4, if you look at a week-by-week basis, where we're at right now, Dragonflight only had like 650,000. What do you think is causing this decline? Do you think people are just getting like burnt out, or is it just like not fun dungeons? Or
yeah, it's 100% not fun dungeons, and you can kind of see the drastic drop from week 1 to week 2, like dropping 300k within the first week. Where in like Dragonflight, you kind of saw like a little uptick in week 2, and then you saw like a slow kind of decline. I know a lot of people dislike a lot of the affixes that they kind of add on, and I think they did. Truthfully, I only ran like a couple mythics this season. I did not like the dungeon pool, and
no,
I think,
ass, bro, fucking ass.
Yeah, and I think this chart kind of attests to that. It's you see how many people just instantly just dropped off of Mythic Dungeons. And again, like this is one of those things like Blizzard really needs to kind of keep an eye on. And I understand like affixes make the game harder, and that's the whole point of affixes. But at the same time, it's like you have some affixes that just completely ruin the game. Like I can't tell you how many times I would be in a dungeon where it's like all of a sudden you're in a phase in the boss fight where you have to move to a specific spot, and then all of a sudden it's you have an affix that requires you to walk out of a zone so you don't get stunned. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna risk maybe either getting stunned and maybe dying after the stun, or I have to walk out of this and maybe risk getting hit by the one shot mechanic that this boss has. So that gets super frustrating. Again, like the dungeon pools have to be fun. I think everything around it has to be fun. A lot of people do mythics to kind of gear up for raids. This raid hasn't been necessarily as enjoyable as they have been in the past. So maybe that's kind of part of it as well too.
Well, do you think a lot of people just went to get their Keystone Master, get their mounts and leave?
I think so, and I think that's kind of what tends to happen, and that's why you kind of tend to see a drop no matter what within Mythics. I also think like classic WoW kind of coming back and like people kind of getting ready for this hardcore anniversary resurgence. has a lot to play with it as well.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, so like if you look at this too, like so week 1 was 2,434,000. Just 2 weeks later, it dropped by almost 700,000 people.
Yeah,
like it's just another thing that I'm kind of reading on it, and I can kind of attest to this because I was trying to pug for first few weeks or on my Fury Warrior. Is a lot of people are saying that the LFG is just ass as well, in the sense that if you aren't playing an S plus tier DPS or healer or tank, nobody freaking wants you. Do you think that Blizzard just needs to make everything really good so that way it really doesn't fucking matter who you play with, or does it like how do you think that they could fix something like that with this LFG crap going on?
I think this is honestly a super easy fix. I think you turn the Mythic Dungeon queue into something similar to the normal and heroic dungeon queue. You queue as DPS, you queue as healer or tank, and then you just get auto thrown into a Mythic Dungeon. I think anything above a certain key, like a probably like a 10 plus, it probably should be like, okay, you need to make your own group. But anything kind of leading up to like a 10 before you, because I'm not 100% sure with the inflation of the dungeon difficulties, how they kind of line up into previous ones. So like I'm not sure if I think like a 5 is equivalent to like a 15 in the past. So I think anything up to like maybe like a 9 or a 10. It's like, okay, you can queue into this and you can get into whatever game you want, and that's fine. And like no one gets to really choose whether or not you want to bring in say like a demon hunter or a shaman or whatever. Like it doesn't matter, because realistically, unless you're kind of pushing for like the highest rating possible, or like you're running like MDI or something, your comp doesn't really matter. Like as long as you know how to do your class and you know how to do your damage, you know the dungeon mechanics, like you're gonna be fine. I think a big thing too that I really wish they would figure out a way to do this is to make the progression not as insane as it is. When you look at the difficulty scaling from a normal dungeon to like a heroic dungeon, it makes sense. Like it just gets progressively harder. But then when you go from like a heroic dungeon to like a mythic 0 or mythic 1, like that jump in difficulty is insane. Like
were they saying it was like a plus 10? Like your plus 1s were like 10s from last season?
I think so, from like Dragonfly season 3. But still, it's like the jump in difficulty should be similar to what the difficulty jump from a normal to a heroic is. And I know a lot of people complain that like, a lot of people complain that like people don't know how to do the dungeons, and that's why they don't want to bring in unless you have like a good IO score, you're playing a good class. And I get it. You don't want to break your key. Like that's fine, whatever. But it's hard for these people to learn how to do the dungeons when it's like
nobody wants to bring them to. Yeah.
Well, that and the increase from a 0 to like a 2 is insane. Like how much more difficult those keys get from just jumping 2 levels is crazy. So someone that cleared all their 0s may try to queue into like a mythic 2 and have no idea what they need to do, because it's like their gear was just so much better than what was required for a 0 that they don't really have to pay attention to the mechanics.
So I can agree with you on like I'm just going to call it Mythic Dungeon Finder thing, right? Like almost like a solo queue for Mythic Dungeons. My only thing is that you can get your Keystone Master by doing only, certain level keys for certain dungeons. So like if you didn't like Siege of Borealis or Grim Battle, you didn't have to get as high of a key in that as something else, like a Mists. Don't you think that what happens if you're one of those guys, let's just say, I'm going to say me, who I have terrible fucking luck, and I get the same damn dungeon over and over and over again, and it's like, I know, I feel like as long as you beat it, it should, it's gonna, like if you beat Siege of Borealis on a +5, if you queued up again, if you were to get that dungeon again, it would only have to be a +6. Do you think that what it should do is just kind of go around, down a list of, +5, +5, +5, +5. Okay, done all these. Now +6, +6, +6, +6, +6. But then at the same time, if you do that, wouldn't those queues be even longer because you're trying to find such a small group of people for the specific dungeons?
No, I think they have to do it completely random. I think they have to base it around your rating, and it's extremely difficult to kind of say it, but it's like if you queue into like a specific dungeon within like Dungeon Finder, it's going to take longer, but eventually you're going to get into a queue in like 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. Like, because it's going to pull people that are randomly pulled into that dungeon and then pull you into that group. So yeah, if you're queuing for specific dungeons, it might take longer, but at least you're going to get into a group, and it's probably still going to be faster than you trying to find a group in LFG. If you're playing like a non-meta class and your IO scale isn't that great, I think the one thing that they have to do is they have to if they do kind of opt for this route, they have to figure out a way to kind of blend your rating and what you've cleared in the past into this. So it's like, I think if you've only done a 2 in like Grim Batal, it can't queue you for like a 4 or 5 in Grim Batal just because you've cleared 5, 6 on everything else. Like if you get into a Grim Batal queue, it's going to queue for like a 3 or 4 at the most.
Yeah, put like a little threshold, like a plus maximum of like of a 2 key higher.
Yeah.
See, I think it would be really cool. I was just thinking about this. So kind of similar to how PvP is, how you have your normal rated arenas and you also have solo shuffle. Imagine like a solo Mythic Dungeon queue where you're able to get your titles. Maybe not Mythic or maybe not Keystone Master or the rank 1 title that you get for doing it. When you form your own group. But introduce that solo aspect into it and then provide its own set of achievements and titles through that. That way you feel like you're, grinding towards something. Or do you think it should just be one huge, queue finder thing?
I think it just has to be one big queue finder thing. I think the one thing, and we kind of,
well, see, because I said that about PvP and people said I was a fucking dumbass for trying to say that the queues should be combined.
I think it should. I think if you're trying to kind of incorporate this whole solo player aspect of things and you want everyone to be able to play the game and do whatever, like, I think you have to be able to do this. I think maybe even to simplify it, you split it based on rating. So your rating is 2K in Mythic Dungeons. You're kind of in a pool between like similar to how like other games do it, where if you're bronze, silver, whatever, like whenever you queue into a match, like a ranked match, you're only going to get queued into matches that fit within that specific rating. So whether bronze is 500 to 1000, silver is 1000 to 1500. So if you're queuing for silver matches, you're only going to be paired up with people that are within that 1000 to 1500 rating, something like that. I think that's kind of the route that they would have to go to make it fair and make sure that everyone is able to play without really overcomplicating it.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that they didn't implement this kind of stuff like back when they introduced solo shuffles, because it would have been like the perfect time to do it. I mean, like I said, I tried doing a bunch of mythics on my Fury Warrior, and I guess I got stuck in that thing of sit in LG forever, getting declined every group. I would actually be more inclined to do Mythic Dungeons if they had that solo queue option. I think you should be able to queue with as many, up to 5 people into it, right? So it's like, how like a Dungeon Finder, you can queue into a dungeon with a group of 5. Imagine being able to queue into a Mythic Dungeon with like 3 people, and it finds those other 2.
Well, I think if you have a group of 5, like that ruins the whole
just go
concept.
Fly to it.
Yeah, you just fly to it. And that's kind of what I was saying. I think you put a cap to how high you can go in this LFG mode, like whether it's 2400, anything above 2400, you have to kind of build a group and then fly to the dungeon.
Yeah, I guess people would be more inclined to take you too, because be like, okay, this guy's already done these at a plus 10, so they obviously know what they're doing.
Yeah. And again, you're still gonna run into the situation where you're playing a suboptimal class and it's gonna be harder for you to find groups above a certain rating. So it's like whether you're bringing your own key now and you're building your groups from there, who knows? Like they have to figure something out, but at the same time, you can't not have the option for people to walk into a dungeon and do their own keys with their with whoever they want to play with, because then you're going to be limiting it to, okay, now you have to queue for a dungeon and you're just going to get a random dungeon, and not the dungeon. Say like people that are trying to do the Mythic Dungeon invitation, like these people, they probably know like they have a harder time with this specific dungeon, so they're gonna go into this dungeon more often than any other dungeon because they want to try and optimize their route and optimize their pools for this specific dungeon, versus why waste time on all the other ones when they feel pretty confident and pretty comfortable with all the other ones.
Yeah, no, that's true. So to hop into our next one here, so hardcore WoW has grown insanely popular over the past probably like week or two. I know you are a big hardcore classic guy. So there's this guild that got created called Only Fangs by Soda Poppin', and I don't think it's a streamer only, but it's a huge streamer online personality guild. I think they got like they obviously got Soda Poppin' in there. I think they got people like Shroud. You got like Zaryu, Bajira. I think they were talking about Summit 1G. So for those people who haven't played Hardcore Classic and aren't really familiar with it, can you kind of explain like what it is and like what the appeal to Hardcore Classic is?
It just adds a different, I guess, layer of difficulty to Classic WoW. I think Classic WoW, like anything, like we talk about this all the time, how big nostalgia is with people that grew up playing World of Warcraft. Like they feel like what they grew up on is the best. Kind of like how we like, no matter what happens, like I'm pretty sure like me and you will probably always say like MOP was the best expansion, because that's when we kind of started getting a little bit more serious about the game and playing it a lot more frequently, was during MOP. So for us, it's like that's kind of our expansion. For these people that kind of grew up and like remember being kids and playing Classic and like, whether it's doing chores or doing whatever to get money so you can play for your subscription fee, like these people are always going to want to go back to that and always going to want to kind of relive those moments. And hardcore, like I said, adds a layer of difficulty that you just never really see with MMOs. MMOs, you kind of, dying is part of the game. Like you're going to die in an MMO. That's a given, because you're going to encounter situations that are difficult, and you're going to die a couple times, and you're going to have to figure out how to overcome it. And now hardcore is like, right? you can't die. Like, yeah, you have to figure out like what the best thing to do before you even do it, because otherwise you're just going to die and you're going to have to restart.
So does that mean that the leveling experience is a lot longer?
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people enjoy it, because it's a different game. It's way, like, I never played Classic. Like I started playing like casually during BC, and it's I can't even like begin to tell you like how BC was, because I didn't play it as much as I've played like MOP, Cataclysm, and stuff like that. Like for me, BC was like barely a memory for me. But
it's because you're like 15,
Classic,
bro.
Yeah, I know. but Classic, it's a completely different game. It's like so much slower, a lot less abilities. There's a lot of things that you kind of have to do that you just like, you kind of forget, like, because you don't have to do it in retail. Well, it's not just not dying, but it's like, okay, now you have to go to your class trainer to get your abilities. Oh, you don't really make money, so it's like you have to be smart with how you,
where you had to go do it and actually learn. You didn't have to like, I think you had to like pay gold.
Yeah.
Learn your abilities.
And then you have different ranks of your spells. So you have like a level 1, level 2, level 3 spell. And it's like you have to change the icon. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with a level. So like, say you learned a level 3 version of the spell and you just never swap the icons in your action bar. Yeah. You're going to be stuck with that level 1 spell the entire time. So it's like having to kind of remember. It's like, okay, I have to switch this. Okay, I have to remember, like you can't really fly anywhere because flying is expensive. So it's like you have to choose when you want to use the flight path, and it's like, okay, gold? I'm just gonna walk. No. They kind of ruined a lot of the fun with Classic WoW.
So
again, it's like,
how long have you been playing Classic for?
So I started playing Classic when it was first kind of reintroduced, and again, like I played a little bit, like very casually, like just kind of again, like I think it's a very different game, and it's more so like you're focusing on the leveling aspect of it. it's something I would always kind of jump back into whenever I'd be done with retail. Like once I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish and there wasn't anything I really wanted to do, whether it's like pushing mythic keys or doing whatever, like I'm going to jump into classic and kind of enjoy classic. Then when Season of Discovery came out, I pushed really hard for Season of Discovery, and I was really enjoying my time playing Season of Discovery. And when they kind of introduced that whole concept of hardcore, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, what is this? I know it initially was just an add-on that people had, and it's like as soon as you died, it was over, and it's you were kind of supposed to delete your character after that. But when Blizzard added the mode to hardcore, I tried it and I died a whole bunch of times, like early on, because it's like you're so accustomed to like, okay, I can pull a little bit, yeah, and they did something in hardcore where they increase how quickly things respawn. So like you can go in and clear like a Murloc encampment, and then all of a sudden like a bunch more Murlocs just pop up, and now you're just like looking around, and you're like, holy crap, I'm screwed. Like it gets to the point where it's like there's so many sketchy moments, and there's so many moments where you're just running for your life and you're just praying that you don't die. And if you live, you're like, okay, that was crazy. Okay, let's try it again, but let's be a little bit smarter. Like last night I was playing with a buddy, and we're trying to clear this little troll encampment, and all of a sudden he walks into a level 21, and we're 16, 17. I'm 17, he's 16. So we walk into a level 21, and we're like, holy crap. We're trying to kill this level 21, and all of a sudden 2 more level 20s walk down. So it's like we're trying to run away, and we somehow make it out. And we're like, okay.
Can you drop aggro?
And we're just debating.
It's really hard to drop aggro.
Yeah, you can drop aggro, but it sometimes it takes a little bit longer for sure. But
so is it fair to say over like the past month you've been playing it pretty regularly? Or like how? So I know you said you've been kind of like on and off with it. Like, if you could go back and say, when did you start playing it more regularly than anything else?
I think the last
this
couple
character
weeks,
you're on right now. Like, when did you start really playing it?
I like kind of like how you said, a lot of credit kind of goes to OnlyFans driving up the excitement around hardcore classic WoW. And I think one of the things that they did is really just get a lot of people excited for something different. You get tired of retail and you want to do something else, and like, yeah, hardcore has always existed, but they just brought a lot of people in, and all these people are just talking about it, getting more and more people excited, getting more people in there, and you just kind of want to be a part of it. It's a lot of fun to play. I think I keep trying to get you to try it.
I'll try it next week maybe,
because I definitely think you would enjoy it.
You've been playing it regularly for like the past month, right?
Yeah.
Would you say? Yeah. Was that fair? Is that a fair assessment? And
I started.
What level are you?
So this is a new character.
When you told me your level, I thought this is the same character you've been playing for the past fucking month. And when you told me your level, I was like, dude, ain't no fucking way am I gonna put that much time in it.
No, so I was before last week. So the new server opened up last week. Before last week, I had a level 35 rogue.
New server? Do they wipe them?
No. So they opened up a new like anniversary server, and that's kind of where OnlyFans went, was this new server. And me and my buddies, we were planning on staying on our old server and just kind of pushing there. But as soon as the new server opened up, there was like a mass suicide of a bunch of players. Like players just climbed up the mage tower and just jumped off and killed their characters
to go to the new server.
To go to the new server. So we're sitting there, we're logged in to our old server, and there's no one there. And we're like, what the heck is going on? Like,
I thought you were going to say you're sitting there watching all these people dive bomb off fucking mage tower.
No, we're like, what is going on? I logged in, there was absolutely no one in Stormwood, nothing going on, and I'm like, this is crazy. And I get a call from my buddy telling me, yep, so a bunch of people just jumped off the mage tower and just killed themselves. So we had to kind of decide. It's like, okay, are we going to go to the new server? Yeah, let's go, because a lot of the, like some of the raids in Classic, like there's one that requires 40 men or 40 people. So it's like you have to be able to build a 40 man to do this raid. And it's
but are people really doing endgame in hardcore? Because again, what happens if you fucking wipe? Yes, that's it. Game over, guys. Game over.
No. So they've introduced something, and I don't know if this is in retail, but this is the first time I heard about it. And was when I started playing hardcore. It's called a petrification potion. I think that's what it's called, but everyone calls it like a petri. So it's a thing that will turn you into stone and make you immune for X amount of time. So the whole thing is like if you're to the point where you feel like you're gonna wipe, you petri and you leave group. And because when you leave group and you're in an instance, it's gonna teleport you out of the.
That's so
the
fucking cheap, dude. What's the fucking point?
So people do stuff like that, and it's like petri and do that. And I think that's why a lot of people want to go to this new server, because there's less and less things that have been discovered. The economy's kind of reset. So you can't really just go in there and have a character that has a bunch of gold, be able to buy everything, be able to buy all the enchants. And that's what a lot of people were doing. It's like my rogue, at level like 15, I had good daggers, I had full enchants, I had all this stuff, I had all these flasks and all this other stuff. And I was like basically just like one-shotting everything. But now it's like you're back to the point. It's like you have nothing. Like maybe you have a couple flasks here and there because you have someone that's an alchemist that's able to create these potions and flasks and give them to you, but otherwise you have what you have, and that's it.
Have you participated in any of those Makaras?
No. I've seen a couple, and
have you seen the one from Zaryu's stream?
Yeah. There's it's crazy. It's again like.
So can you explain what a Makara is for anybody who doesn't know what they are?
It's just a duel to the death.
Yeah, you have to
like I can only
say I agree to do it.
yeah. You have to type in I agree. It's I can only imagine how exhilarating a Makarag is. And granted, like it's completely different than what like a duel in like retail or normal or like even just like a regular duel where like now you have people that are gonna run away and like reset and like get world buffs and do all this other stuff. Like I saw one where someone was like getting ready to ding. He started a Makarag against a rogue. The rogue blew everything, and the guy was at like maybe like 10 HP, and he goes in, kills a mob, and dings off that mob, which brings him back to full health, and he's able to kill the rogue.
Oh my god! Well, isn't it too if you yield or forfeit or leave the dueling area, don't you get like a week long debuff that only goes away once you're like if you're logged in?
I think so. Yeah,
dude, fuck that, bro.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's something different and it's something fun, and I think this is why I think we talked about it in the past when New World came out. Like that's kind of why I was really enjoying New World was when I was playing it, was because it's the leveling concept of it. It feels like it matters. Like you feel like you're actually learning how to play your class. You feel like the leveling is actually difficult versus when you go into retail, you're basically like a freaking god at level 1. Like you're killing everything really, really quickly. You don't really get a chance to learn your class. Like you'll get abilities that you might not even touch until your max level. And then all of a sudden you're at max level and you're like, okay, I need to learn how to play my class now. Versus like if you think about it in the past, like leveling, like that was the whole point of leveling, is like you're learning how to play your class as you level. Yeah. And that's why people would always give people crap about boosting characters and all that stuff. I was like, oh, you don't know how to play your class, blah, blah, blah. But now it's like, even if you level your character all the way through, like you still have no idea how to play your class. If I level up a class that I've never played before, I could get it all the way to max level and have absolutely zero idea how to play the class. And I'm having to sit there and watch YouTube guides. I'm like, okay, these are the buttons I'm supposed to press. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I can't tell you how, like I've granted, like I probably haven't played as many classes as I probably should have for as long as I've been playing, but like if I try to jump into a character that I haven't played in a long time, I have no idea what any of these abilities are, and I'm gonna sit there like looking whatever. Okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this?
What expansion is Hardcore Classic based on? Is that vanilla or?
It's vanilla.
So when they release Classic MOP, are you gonna come back to that and stop playing Hardcore? You think Hardcore is always gonna have a spot there? You're always gonna want to go back to it.
I don't know, because like I was kind of thinking about that too, because like because
I'll be on there with you in MOP. I promise you, I'll be on MOP Classic.
When Mop Remix came out, I wasn't really I didn't play it, and it was kind of weird because it's like I've always told myself like I love Mop, and like I've played like Mop private servers and I've enjoyed playing Mop. It's just, I think it's just so much fun. I think it's like the best the game has ever been for me. But when Mop Remix came out, I wasn't playing it. I didn't really see myself going out of my way to play it.
Well, they didn't do a good job of explaining exactly what it was. Like when I leveled my characters, I didn't know that you couldn't. I thought when you hit 70 that you were able to bring it over to Dragonflight and play it, but I didn't realize that you were stuck in the Panda zone
really?
for the whole time. Yeah, and you could only do the dungeons. You can only do the raids and the scenarios. That was it. You know, you could do the questing, but nobody did that because they made leveling so fucking fast. So besides that, you really couldn't do anything besides farm the tokens to buy the mounts and the transmogs.
I'd really like to see how people receive it. I think if I see a lot of people playing it, I'm definitely going to be a lot more interested in wanting to play it. Just because you don't want to go into, especially in MMO, like you want to see people in the cities. You want to see people doing stuff, because otherwise it's going to make the game like, yeah, the leveling was cool. I really love the zones, but if I'm playing MOP, like I want to do the raids, I want to do Siege of Orgrimmar, I want to do the PvP. But if no one's playing it, then you're not really going to be able to do any of that. Like, so that's the thing for me. It's like I would love to see people receive it very well. I think this is the last iteration of Classic that we're going to see is MOP.
Well, they said they weren't doing it anymore, right? They said the MLP was the last one. I don't fucking see him doing, what was it, WoD after that, or Legion? I don't see him doing any of those. Those were so poorly received.
Yeah, I definitely think this is going to be the last one, and I don't know. I'm definitely interested. Like it's one of those things that like I'm thinking about it. When it comes out, I'll see how many people are playing it. I'll see if maybe I'll make a character and go from there. It's just it's hard to say. It's hard to say right now because classic or hardcore WoW is just kind of got me in its grips. And when the new season comes out, like I'm gonna play the new season of retail and see what the dungeons are, see what the raid is. yeah, like no matter what, like I'm always gonna go back and try and clear the raid, clear heroic, and then maybe go from there. Like if the mythic dungeons are cool, maybe I'll push mythics, but we'll see.
I hope that for the new season they give a little bit better looking of a mount, because I really wanted to push Keystone Master for the mount, and then I saw it and I was like, kind of ass.
That's the one thing that I just like about mythic or pushing Keystone Master is the mount tends to. Last expansion was the first time I ever really did mythics, and last season specifically, like it was the same mount every single season. It was just a different color,
right? Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going to do the same thing. I hope they do something different. We'll see. But I think the really good thing that WoW is doing is they're giving people the ability to kind of play however they want. They like if you want to play classic, go play classic. Yeah, if you want to go play Season of Discovery, go play Season of Discovery, which like that's another avenue that I really want to like explore, just because it gives you the ability to play the game that you enjoy in like a completely different avenue. Like you want to be a rogue tank, go be a rogue tank. You want to be a warlock tank, go be a warlock tank. Mages can heal, all this other like differences in the game that you can really do. And it's something that I want to try and I want to explore and go from there. I wish they would incorporate Season of Discovery into the future expansions, whether it's like TBC, Wrath, MOP, etc. I just, for me, vanilla isn't the expansion for me that I have, that I like want to go out of my way to play. So having kind of being handcuffed into just vanilla is what kind of drew me away from Season of Discovery. Granted, hardcore right now is very enjoyable, but at the same time, it's like I can definitely see myself kind of getting to the point with hardcore. It's like after a couple deaths, I'm just gonna be like, okay, yeah, this is it for me. Like I don't think I want to do this. But I think a lot of it has to do with because it's in vanilla and it's like it's not an iteration of World of Warcraft that I enjoyed as much as some of the other ones. And granted, I didn't get to experience it when it was. So who knows?
Like I said, I'll be picking up. I might hop onto it next week. I don't know. We'll see.
It's definitely fun, man. Like I would at least give it a try. And again, just go into it knowing like you have to be a little bit more cautious than you're kind of used to. Because like the first time I tried it, I went in there thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go in there and just run through everything at level 1, level 2, and it's gonna be fine. And you realize it's like, okay, I'm playing a mage. I have to sit down and drink after every single pull.
Because your mana doesn't regenerate that fast, does it?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I just pulled something and there's like a bunch of other stuff in front of me. It's like, okay, I either need to heal or I need to drink. I need to do something because otherwise I'm just going to die in the next pull. So it gives you a little bit something else to think of, but it's definitely fun. It's super enjoyable.
All right, I'll look into that. So before we get into our last topic, if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast UG and on YouTube at NoBS Podcast UG. Also be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So the end of the year is nigh. We have 1 month left until 2025. You came up with a few of these biggest W's this year for WoW. So we could kind of go into them like one by one, or I'll list them off, and we'll kind of go into why each of them were, WoW's biggest W's. So we got Plunderstorm, MOP Remix, the Warbane system, the War Within expansion, and Skywriting. So Plunderstorm, that's one me and you kind of don't see eye to eye on. I only played, I think, like 1 or 2 matches. You said you actually really enjoyed Plunderstorm, because I know they're bringing it back, right?
Yeah, and honestly, you're the only person that I've interacted with.
Oh, bullshit, dude. No,
like 100%. Like everyone I've talked to that played Plunderstorm loved it. Like when you like watch some of the reviews that like some of the streamers and like YouTubers had with Plunderstorm, like it was incredible. Like you see people that have never PvP'd in their life that jumped into Plunderstorm that loved it. I think Plunderstorm was amazing. I think it was the best thing Blizzard has done in like 10 years, honestly.
Really? Okay.
And I do know it was
well received. I do know a lot of people did say it was really good. I thought it was really, really fucking weird.
I think you just suck, dude.
Probably.
The one thing I do kind of wish they would do a little different is switch up where things spawn, just so people don't necessarily. And granted, I guess this is
the same spot for everything, right? Every single time.
Yeah, and I guess people do this in BRs too. Like they have like their spot where they're always going to go. And like, yeah, these spots are probably going to be more contested if everyone knows this is the best farming spot. But because of the way Plunderstorm kind of works, where it's like based off like getting gold to level and do all this other stuff, that knowing like what the best farming spots, and if you land there first, you're just going to have a major advantage. Like I think that's kind of one of those things that like adds a layer of like, okay, is this really fair? I think something like that has to switch up, but it was super, super enjoyable. I loved playing it. I
just think it's another mode I gotta try to go into. I do know I did like the rewards. It had some transmogs, had some cool mounts that you could get from it. That was definitely huge. So maybe again, I feel like a lot of these I say I'm gonna give them a try, but I think I really need to just step out of my comfort zone of retail and try these other game modes that they offer. So our next one, MOP Remix. You said you didn't really play a whole lot of it. I think I leveled every single freaking character to 70 through MLP Remix, because they had you had that cloak and you gained so much damn experience from using it. I remember, dude, I had my Frosty K fully gemmed out, fully geared and everything. I ran Sam through all the raids and dungeons, and I was fucking one-shotting everything doing that. So really? Did you get all the mounts and everything like that off there, or did you just kind of not really participate much into it?
I made a character, and I think I did one quest, and then I stopped.
Well, I remember when it came out. I think I even posted on my, how you can set like a status on BNet, or like a what do you call that, like a broadcast message.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, MOP Remix is the best thing to come to WoW in a long ass time. I had so much fucking fun in it, dude. I mean, you kind of, like I said, doing all the old raids. I loved Siege of Orgrimmar. I loved Mogashan Vaults. I loved Terravan the Springs, Toes and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't love Toes, but I loved Toes, the raid.
I think for me, it's just like what is the, and I guess this is probably why I didn't really dive too deep into MOP Remix. It's like, what is the point of doing it? Is it just a faster way to level? And that's kind of what I saw it as. It's like, it's just a faster way to level up your character to this level, to be able to jump into the next expansion. And I didn't really have a character I wanted to level, and I think that's a lot of the reason why I was just like not really drawn into it. I think if they had done something, yeah, I have everything at like, because what max level is like 80 now.
No, yeah, but you were able to get everybody to 70. Then once War Within dropped in, you just kind of picked right back into where your character is at. You started off in Stormwind or Orgrimmar.
Yeah, I think the only character that I don't have at 70 is, or only class I don't have at 70 is a shaman.
Really? See, like I used it. I played MLP Remix to get all the mounts, dude. I think MLP had some like the best looking mounts. They had all those cloud serpents. I got that Astral Cloud Serpent, which is like that see-through blue one with all like the little fucking stars and shit like that. So fucking cool.
Yeah.
And they even got there's a gold one. You had to do an achievement to get this gold one. It's just pretty much a reskin of the Astral instead of blue being gold. Fucking beautiful. Loved it. Yeah. MLP Remix, fantastic. If they did another one, I want them to do a Wrath remix and be able to get the old mounts and transmogs from Wrath minus Invincible. That's the only one you shouldn't be able to get. So
yeah.
Here you go. You go ahead.
No. Yeah, I think them doing that with other expansions would be interesting for sure. I think that's something that they can kind of incorporate with the whole Chromie thing, where you choose your zone, maybe add some flair and some differences. Like I think giving you the ability to jump into the old raids is pretty cool. So I think incorporating the raids into those zones as you're leveling would be pretty sick, because it really lets you experience the entire story of that expansion and kind of get an idea of what everything is.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I loved MLP Remix. I would love for them to do what expansion do you think you would enjoy if they did a remix, just to be able to enjoy the old dungeons and raids?
It's tough because it's the expansion that I like the most was Mop, and I didn't even go into it. So, I really like the Mop dungeons. I think Mop had some of the best dungeons ever. Kata was super fun too. I really, really enjoyed Kata dungeons. So maybe Kata, but at the same time, it's like if I didn't play it during Mop Remix, I don't see myself playing it for anything else.
All right, I'll give you that. That makes sense. So now warbands definitely, that's like the number one thing I think WoW did like the best this year. So being able to put, mats, fucking gold, they had the warband transferable gear, fucking fantastic. What'd you think about warbands, right?
It's awesome. Yeah, I think just if it was just the warband bank, I think that would be incredible. Like that's such a big plus. Like I don't have to sit there and mail. The one thing that I wish they would do is if you had the gold in your warband bank to allow you to spend it without having to go to the bank and pull it out. I think that would be awesome. And then kind of just allow all your characters to just pull from that same bank as long as they're in your warband. I think that if they did that, it would be perfect. The XP boost that you get when as you're leveling up characters in your warband is pretty cool too. But no, yeah, I've enjoyed it.
The only thing I did not like about it was, so you have that, I'm gonna call it, it's a spell to summon like a mobile warband bank. It's on like a 3-hour cooldown. And that's the only thing I didn't like. I mean, I guess you could always go to your major city and just fucking go to the bank and do it that way, but
I mean, realistically, you're in your warband or you're in the main city like pretty regularly, no matter what kind of content you're doing. You're very rarely going to be out of the main city for more than 3 hours at a time, unless you're doing some crazy farming. And even then, like Hearth, you can Hearth, and flying is so quick now that you can get back to where you were at within like 5 minutes of flying.
Yeah, no, that's true. War Within, obviously, that's the new expansion that just came out this year. What's your thoughts on the expansion too? I think it's been, I think I rated it as like one of the best expansions. I love Dornogal. I love the raids. The dungeons, not so much. What's your take on the War Within?
I think it's been okay.
Better than the last few expansions?
I like Dragonflight. I think Dragonflight was very fun. Like Dragonflight was the most I've enjoyed World of Warcraft in a long time, since probably maybe like beginning of Warlords of Draenor, like that, and that's a long time ago. But Dragonflight's been awesome. Dragonflight was awesome. War Within, like the dungeons weren't bad. Like I honestly, like I enjoyed the dungeons. They were, granted, once they got into the mythic realm, it added like a whole nother headache that I just didn't really want to deal with. But initially the dungeons were very fun.
Well, what's funny though that we talk about the dungeons is there was one, I think it's the Dawnbreaker, the one you're up on the the
boat,
ship. Yeah. So when I first did that, I was like, man, this shit's gonna be hard as hell come Mythic Dungeons, and it's actually like one of the easiest ones to do too.
Yeah. It's they changed a couple things around to make it easier for everyone. Yeah, the dungeons have been good. I like the concept of delves. The only thing I really disliked is how they kind of turned something that was supposed to be you do it by yourself to, it's like once you're pushing certain amounts, it's just so much better and so much easier to just do it in a group. I think they should have really just stuck to making it solo only.
Yeah, but then you also have some classes though that are kind of hard to do it by yourself.
Yeah, but again, like that's the whole point. It's like if they want to figure out a way to incorporate solo play, like this was their attempt into solo play to allow you to gear to be able to get ready for raids, for Mythic Dungeons, whatever. But if you're making it to where it's like not every class can do it solo, it's kind of pointless at that point. It's like delves can only get you so far. Like once you get to like end level delves, you're getting like 615 item level gear.
Well, it's past. Like I think it's only level 8. You can go up to I think like level 12, but anything after 8, it's the same fucking level.
Yeah, so it's like gear. So it's like, what is the point of incorporating something that's supposed to be solo, but it's not optimal to do it solo because it's just so much easier and so much better to just do it in a group. So yeah, that's kind of where my frustration with delves was. It's like what's the point of delves? It's basically just like a quicker dungeon at this point. And even then, it's like you outgear it so fast that there's no point in doing it once you get to a certain point. It's like if you do the 8s, you do your bountiful 8s, you get it's really good for your vault. Like you said, it gives you like this 615 gear in your vault. Yeah, but you outgear it so quickly. Like once you get to heroic and if you push any sense of mythic, like you're just outgearing it relatively quickly. Granted, yeah. I guess it's like it's more casual friendly and like you can kind of jump in it and finish it in 15 minutes, but at the same time it's like for the people that have been playing this game or play this game, I think for the most part, like most people that play this game tend to play it for like a couple hours a day. Very rarely are you going to get someone that's playing this game for like 10, 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that's kind of where my frustration arose with this.
Maybe just increase the item level of shit you get from the 9s through 12s, whatever that goes to.
They need to improve Bran. They need to make him better.
They did buff him. They did buff his healing and his damage, but it's still not fucking shit.
And then realistically make it a solo thing.
Where you can't
don't let people go in there with groups. Like make it a solo thing and make it so it's not you're not getting just completely destroyed. Like allow Bran to out heal you and like add some like one shot mechanics that'll kill you if you stand in it. But at the same time, like don't let like some trash kill you. Yeah, because that's gonna get to the point where it's like if you're just dying with a trash pull, you're gonna be like, okay, why am I doing this? There's no way.
No, true. So then you had our last thing on this list. You have skywriting. So yes. You love skywriting. I don't even use it. It's very rare I even have it enabled. I still use regular writing.
I think it's the best thing WoW has done in a long time.
Do you think they should up the charges from, I think it's like 6 to higher? Do you think 6 is like at a good amount to where it's not too fast?
More than enough. That's more than enough.
I did like how in this expansion they let you skywrite after like the first fucking 10 minutes of questing. You unlock the ability to do it.
Yeah. It's awesome, and you can use any mount to skyride. That was my.
There was people complaining about that though. They're like, "That's kind of stupid that you can do that."
It does look weird. Granted, like the dragons look so much better when you're skywriting with the dragons. But that was my one gripe with skywriting in Dragonflight. Was you go out of your way to get all of these freaking mounts. Like there's some mounts that you grind for, like people will grind years to get, like Ashes of Alar or something like that. Yeah. Something as rare as that. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, you just can't use it unless you're like in a Stormwind or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, having the ability to do that is awesome. I think if they incorporate, and granted they might have something like this, I honestly don't look at all the buttons for skywriting. I only use like a couple of them.
Yeah, so
I don't know if
them.
I don't know if they have like a hover, like allowing you to just hover.
No, they got a recharge. They got that spinny fucking thing, the whirling thing, shoot up and then fly forward.
Yeah, but I think it's awesome. It adds a level of like now you have to kind of sit there and pay attention. It's giving you something to do while you're flying around. It's enjoyable. I can't tell you how many times I would just sit there, just kind of flying up and down and going in a big circle, and just like recharging, fly, recharging, fly, recharging, fly, recharging, fly. It's an enjoyable gameplay loop, and I really wish they would have done something like this sooner because I love it. I think it's so fun.
Yeah, and I'm also glad you don't have to pay gold to be able to get as fast as you do. You just are able to do it as you've leveled up your skywriting. Because you remember how expensive it was? It was like 3,500 gold, or like I remember you getting up to like 10,000 gold or something, like even higher, to get like the 330 flight speed with the normal mounts.
And it's so much faster too.
It is. I wish there was an easier, like you said, I wish there was a way to like hover, because that's the only thing, like especially like when you're farming nodes or anything like that, like it's very hard to like, unless you shoot straight down into the ground, it's very hard to control where you're going, if that makes sense.
You just got to get good, man.
Oh no, I'm good, dude. I'm dumb. So, so is there anything else you kind of want to hit on with WoW for this week, or?
No, that's it for me.
All right, so some upcoming games. We got one game really that's worth kind of mentioning coming out. We got Football Manager 25 coming out here in 2 days, November 26th. And some games that you need to check out on Steam that are on sale at the moment if you're looking for something fun to play. We got Diablo 4 is 40% off at $29.99. We got the new Star Wars Outlaws is 25% off at $52.49. Madden 25 is 50% off at $34.99. You got NBA 2K5 is 61% off at $49.76. And Remnant 2 is 50% off at $24.99. And that's it for today's episode of the BS Show. If you enjoyed the unfiltered conversations, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG. And don't forget to connect with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for the latest updates and more. Catch us on TikTok as well at NoBS Podcast GG. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back next week with more straight talk. No BS.